Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to another edition of Factions of Freedom. I'm your host, Noisera, Freedom Faction, whichever one you prefer, and I entitled this episode, Radicalized, Disobedience, Technetronic Infiltration, and Engineering Environments. Why? Because we're going to be looking at things like Antifa going up against cars, the fact that some of these activists are getting a little bit more rowdy. Facebook has launched their new portal device, as well as Elon Musk fixing Flint's water crisis issue. A whole lot of different things happening here on this step towards the New World Order, and it seems like Agenda 21 is being fulfilled right around the corner. Now, before we get started with the episode, I have a few updates for you good people. We've added over 100 new items into our store, and I would really appreciate it if you guys take the time to go check it out. On top of that, we're reforming our tier program for our exclusive members. We're introducing more content, as well as you good people being experimental guinea pigs for all the other good things that we do. We've decided to upload more videos to Real.video because they're not really censoring us. So you can go check out some of our good work there. I'll put the link in the description bar below, as well as the debut or the relaunch of Paradox Radio. If you guys have been paying attention, you may have seen that we've kind of started to work a little bit more with the radio feature. And what I would like for that is basically giving people who don't subscribe to the podcast the ability to listen to mini-casts, episodes, interviews, and more. I'll put the link in the description bar so you good folks can check that out and let me know what you think. But with that being said, let's start the show. Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to another edition of Factions of Freedom. It seems like we are still dealing with more of the insanity, more of the New World Order showing its head, more of the chaos unfolding. You see, it always comes in waves, lashes, and you wonder, why not? Why aren't things like this getting reported? Why isn't this getting talked about? What's going on with this? What does this mean for us? Well, this is why we're here, to discuss all of this crazy stuff that we see happening. We really have to think about the time frame that we're in, what we have at our disposal, what every individual could be doing with their time, with their energy, with their resources, and why that could be considered an issue. Now, with that being said, let's jump into the show. Let's talk about these types of things. What has happened? People are getting caught up in Antifa. They've made the news again. They're beginning to make a name for themselves. There's that. I didn't really talk about the whole presidential alert system that happened the other day, but I really think that's important. We also have Elon Musk talking about fixing Flint's water crisis. So much stuff is really going on when you take a step back. You see how close into the future we really are. How far we really have gone, how far we've really come. But at the same time, the deliberate regression, the deliberate pull, so to speak, the throttle of humanity. I think now more than ever, it's more apparent or more obvious of the reality of our progress being stifled, or our progress being co-opted or manipulated to some degree. We'll be going over this and more in this edition. As I said before, this episode is titled Radicalized, Disobedience, Technetronic Infiltration, and Engineering Environments. So let's get this started. What's got everybody all wrapped up? Could it be the fact that Antifa's been making news, right? Apparently they decided to go out there and I think it's in Portland, Oregon, right? They decided to basically direct traffic. I don't know what they were doing. I don't think they knew what they were doing, but they decided to direct traffic. And when you watch some of the videos, you'll see some of the people there. They're saying, get out of the way, hush, hush, don't talk to me, just move. So then we start to see again, this rise, and I guess I don't even know what you would call it, man. Would it be what would that be? It's like entitled authoritarianism. I don't even know what you would call that type of stuff. That's why I guess I just don't deal with these type of people. But let's play this quick clip, the one that I was talking about with you guys, and then we'll go into the full video the rest of it. But this is up on our page over on Instagram. It says, "Wave of Anarchy. Antifa has taken over the streets in Portland, Oregon."
Okay, well, shut the fuck up, son. Go, Trent. Dumb bitch.
Just go that way. Because I told you to.
Really?
Because I told you to.
Don't hurt
Yeah,
me.
brother.
Just go.
Yeah, you little white little fucker. Yeah, you're a fucking little whitey, aren't you? The First Amendment, get the fuck down the road.
Please just keep going the direction.
Just please turn right,
Please
for
go
Christ's
the
sake.
direction I asked
For
you to
Jesus
go.
Christ's sake, just turn right.
Please, you're
will ya?
blocking traffic and they're getting pissed
Oh, we're blocking traffic.
You can turn. You can just turn. Just
we're
go.
blocking
Just
traffic.
go. Just turn, please. Please just
Now you're
keep
gonna have to
going.
wait, 'cause you got cars coming.
This is great. You can see how organized this is.
North Carolina, huh? Right.
I'm a white supremacist because I'm white.
Go back to North Carolina where you came from.
Wow.
You don't need your KKK in Portland, Oregon. Fucking KKK from North Carolina.
Okay. Wow. All right. So there's I'll play the full clip here in a second because I just want to kind of take a stab at this. You know, I'm from South Carolina, so if they're from North Carolina and they're white supremacist and I'm from South Carolina, does that make me a black supremacist? That's the level of ignorance that's being put out there. And, you know, they say that they're blocking traffic. Like, come on, look at these guys. Look at these people. They're out there just literally yelling at traffic. And this isn't the first time, you know, this type of stuff has happened. That's what I mean by the civil disobedience. We saw it with the anti-Kavanaugh protests. You know, we see it with a lot of this stuff that's going on. I don't want to call it Trump derangement syndrome because that, you know, attributes it to one individual causing all of this chaos. I kind of want to just take a step back and look at the wider spectrum of chaos that's kind of unfolding. And, you know, I'll play a clip for you guys later on. It's of Trump's, one of Trump's biographers saying that he's kind of projecting a wave of indecency. And there's a few ways to look at that, yeah, for sure. But what I'm trying to get at with just, you know, again, looking at Antifa and looking at all the chaos that this type of stuff is promoting is we're seeing the rise of basically militant activism. I definitely know I've gone over it before where they have documents on guerrilla warfare. You know, you have to understand a lot of these people too are paid agitators. We've gone over that as well. You know, top resistance members who have agreed to the fact that they are, not really agreed, but admitted to the fact that they are indeed paid by the higher ups. Could that be George Soros? Could that be Hillary Clinton? We're not necessarily sure who those higher ups are because there's so many different people who are playing into this. You see, and this isn't just the first time we've heard this. So this chaos, as I keep saying, it's going to intensify. We have to understand that some of these people actually do have issues with Donald Trump, and they're kind of on the fence. They're hesitant. But then you have people who are out there who are actually paid to sow that division. Let's see if we can get this clip up for you guys. This is the top resistance member admitting that he gets paid by higher ups.
I have several businesses, but you know,
To sow
resistance
division.
is a really good group of people that's spread throughout the country, probably throughout the world. I mean, it's just kind of, it's just what I enjoy spending my time doing. And of course we get paid, you know? Of course there's higher ups pay us.
So you're paid for this? It's not just like something you do because you love of country?
Yeah, I mean, people pay us. They want us to help sow the division and to take over Trump's Twitter feed. When he makes a post, they want our tweets to be up there. They don't want other people to, like Trump supporters, to be seen in that case.
Is that
Okay.
Or is that your job?
I think that's a good place to pause it. And so I'm going to play the rest of that clip for you guys of Antifa kind of chasing down that driver. Right, so some people would say that these people have a love of country, but I don't really think that's it. You know, you see how he kind of sidestepped that answer. What we're seeing right now is, again, the same way we've covered the New Mexico jihadis, the same way we cover the Satanists and the magic resistance and everything else that comes with that. You know, look at Antifa. Look at these people who are becoming militant and activated and who are being told you can do these types of things. And unfortunately, what this is going to cause is an authoritarian response. But here's the rest of that clip of Antifa basically obstructing traffic. I'll narrate it. Yeah. It seems like he just drove through a crowd of people. So now you got Antifa chasing them down the street. Kicking and beating the car. Crazy. Yeah, okay, so Antifa has definitely been showing out this whole presidency. And I get it. I understand. You don't like Trump. But what is this going to do to the rest of civilization? What is this doing? Like, what is the actual purpose of this? It's just that. It's guerrilla warfare. It's to obstruct. It's to resist. It is to cause hesitancy. But what is the point? Wouldn't that throttle the country? I mean, I don't know. I guess because I'm not in this mindset, I don't necessarily understand these people. But again, I think I want to play another clip for you guys that I wanted to get to the other week of this activist, this pro-abortion activist who roundhouse kicked this pro-life activist. And apparently, the guy's been arrested. He's done this before. 2 other people. He's tackled females into what is it? Light poles. He's tackled them onto the ground. Like he's done this stuff before. But this is just, again, the kind of mindset that's being permeated, that this kind of, as Trump's biographer would put it, wave of indecency that's being introduced into society. Let's take a listen.
It's hard to confuse everything.
But still, it's better to be, you want to kill him with kindness, remember?
That's right. What?
They actually have people filming you the whole time. It's classic, kill with kindness.
Guess what? Hey,
Destruction of private property. It's against the law.
Somebody gets raped by somebody and they're like, I'm a 16-year-old and I can't have this baby. Think you should keep it?
It's a baby.
Yeah.
If someone is raped and she gave birth and she decided to kill her 3-year-old child.
I meant to get your phone.
That's where he kicked it.
Someone call the cops.
Meant to get your phone.
Do not
Yeah.
touch me. Someone call the cops.
He says he meant to kick the phone, but you watch it, guys like literally just fruitcake. That's the best way I can say it. But apparently, he's done it time and time again. I don't understand what it means. I don't understand like the chaos. I guess I don't understand. I don't know. I don't get it. But more and more of these types of things are happening. I laughed at Ted Cruz being chased out of the restaurant. And again, these are all just instances where this is recently happening. Who knows where it's going to go from here? A few years ago, maybe even last season or last year, I remember talking about how they eventually were going to start having security on senators, on elected officials, on politicians. And that kind of sends the signal to everybody else, to common people like ourselves, that they become, again, the elite, the protected class. There's so many different things that come with this, but I think one of the bigger clips that we really need to look at is Hillary Clinton basically talking about how the Democrats won't be civil until they're out of office, until the Republicans are out of office. Now, again, I don't really try to look at left-right paradigm nonsense. I know it's the same wing of the same bird. These are 2 wolves deciding on how they're going to eat the sheep. But what's happening right now is just a general radicalization period. And as I said before, this is going to create a radicalized atmosphere that's only going to bring forth this authoritarian response. Realize that we've been covering stuff since Jade Helm 15, the Ferguson riots, and so much more. I'm fully aware of what the police have at their disposal. This is why we look at the types of equipment that they have, the updates that the military gets, and so forth. What I'm trying to point out to you guys is they're allowing some of this insanity to take place. I've called it legalized lunacy. Some people would call it mass hysteria. Who knows? But let me play this clip for you guys of Hillary Clinton talking about how the Democrats won't be civil.
With a political party that wants to destroy what you stand for, what you care about. That's why I believe if we are fortunate enough to win back the House and or the Senate, that's when civility can start again. But until then, the only thing that the Republicans seem to recognize and respect is strength. And you heard how the Republican members, led by Mitch McConnell, the president, really demeaned the confirmation process, insulted and attacked not only Dr. Ford, but women who were speaking out. You know, look, I remember Republican operatives shutting down the voting in Florida in 2000. I remember the swift voting of John Kerry. I remember the things that even the Republican nominations.
I remember a lot of things.
That you cannot.
But unfortunately, I have to report on these things that are going on. You know, like George Bush's whole election. You know, whenever his brother was running some of the voting in Florida, yeah, that was kind of really sketchy. I will admit. You know, each party does a lot of sketchy stuff. This is why I prefer not to label myself with any particular political party. And if I am, it's libertarian or anarchist, man. You know, I'm really not down for any of this type of stuff. But what I'm trying to say is, why are they rolling out Hillary Clinton? Why are they rolling out Michelle Obama? Why are they rolling out Bernie Sanders? Why are they rolling out all the Michelle Obama? Why are they rolling out all these people? It's because they're trying to make another run at it. That's what some people might tell you. For me, I think it's kind of like a triggering event. It's saying we're not going away, we're going to stay around, we're going to cause this kind of, we're going to say that it's okay to kind of have this civil war. And I talked about that, how, you know, with Hillary Clinton, we were supposed to go to war with Russia and things like this, and how in America, we were going to have the trade war that we see going on with China, and we're going to have a kind of proxy war that we see taking place in Syria. But we're also going to have a domestic threat, which makes Trump seem as if he's done some good, or, you know, that he's actually here to be a recognizable president. That's kind of what Antifa is. What we see right now, as I keep trying to reiterate, is this wave of indecency that's just being unloaded upon the population. And whenever we see this type of stuff day in and day out, we become desensitized not only to discipline, not only to reserve, restraint. We at a certain point, we actually expect to see this chaos. We actually expect to live this chaos. And so, for someone like myself, I have to ask: okay, do we point this stuff out, or do we look past it and see what it really means? You've got to understand what it means. They're trying to say it's okay, go out there and go be crazy. These people, though, they're allowed to do this. The same way, to some degree, I am allowed to do this. We have Freemasons, we have intelligence operatives, we have military, we have law enforcement, we have all kinds of people that pay attention to the show. I am allowed to talk about these topics and operate on a certain degree, right? So is Antifa. That's all I'm going to say. But I'm not. I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm controlled. I'm over here trying to figure out ways to get this content to you guys. These people don't understand how they're actually playing into the hands of our adversaries. I talked about this before. I'll talk about this, and then we'll play another clip for you guys. I talked about this earlier this week. It's kind of like being in bed with the devil. That's what these people are. They're in denial, and they're in deep. You got to think, if these people realize that after a while their money does come from somebody like George Soros, they're in too deep. It's like the mob. You know way too much, and if you can't defect. It's a whole organization you've given over your entire life to. Your information, they know everything about you. You got to stay committed. You can't back out now. That's what a lot of these groups and organizations are. They're going to become huge gangs, and that's where we're moving into the future. Huge sections of the cities or local areas that are controlled by these types of operatives and by other people who don't want these types of affiliations. This is why you see different sects of pro-America and anti-American groups going on. Let's call them gangs. Let's call them what they are. This is the future, though, and that's what this is only going to unlock. What do you think this? What is this going to achieve? I digress. Let me get you another clip up, guys. That kind of goes again. It shows you the mindset of those people who are in power, who actually do have the ability to affect us, Trump's still going to build this wall. You don't hear Antifa talking about that. You just see all kinds of chaos. You've really got to see where these types of things are going. It's beyond political. But let me get up this clip of you guys, this clip for you of David Attenborough, who's talking about how the population must come to an end. The slaves, the serfs, the chattel, they know too much, and so they've got to cull the population. This is why, again, they're allowing for this radical behavior to take place, the spectrums, so they can arrest the dissidents and create a more controlled population. But let's take a listen.
In the long run, we must population growth has to come to an end. There are some reasons for thinking that will happen almost inevitably. One of the reasons that the population has increased as fast as it has is that people like me are living longer than we did. So there are more and more people just because the
rich people
expectancy of life has increased. But it is very alarming at the rate we're going, and although people will say that in the long run we are going to stabilise, they're going to stabilise, as far as I can see, at a rather higher level than the Earth can really accommodate.
And this is whenever you begin to start talking about things such as transhumanism, life extension, and all these other things. Why are we pivoting from looking at the radicalized disobedience? You can get caught up in all this nonsense, and then you can realize how much of your life is controlled, or you can actually start to begin to look at how what's taking place is manipulated, so to speak. This political stuff, it only goes so far. This is why I tell people your political activism should not end with your vote. Vote with your dollars, vote with your lifestyle. And the same people who are pushing this are the same people pushing death. You see, death, control, and all kinds of other nonsense. We're only trying to offer liberation and freedom, but we have to understand our adversaries in order to do so. Which brings me to my next point. Check this out. Scientists have said that the human race is facing extinction as the male sperm count declines. We put this up October 9th. It's from Technocracy News by Martin Baggett. He says, in fact, male sperm count has been falling year over year for some time. But this doesn't warrant a prediction of man's extinction. After all, it only takes a single sperm to fertilize an egg. In Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, this was solved by growing babies in incubators instead of a mother's womb. Technocrats will probably study that next, and we've talked about that. Things such as ectogenesis, gametogenesis, eugenics, epigenetics, and everything else. You see, what's happening right now is they're allowing, with the last wave of humanity, to get out all of our dissidents, all of our subversive behavior before they try to weed it out. You know, you watch movies before, you know, and you kind of see like a virile savagery about people, and that's to a degree what we're seeing resurge today. Not necessarily with the crime, but with the mentality of people. You know, but what's the point of that? To take down testosterone. Don't worry, we'll get into that next. The idea of gender bending, mixing man with women and women with man, all the stuff that we see going on. What's happening is the manipulation of society on a large scale. But let me get back into this article right here. It says sperm quality is reducing by 2% per year, according to a study of 124,000 men visiting fertility clinics in Europe and the USA, with experts blaming chemicals and modern lifestyles. Male fertility is failing every year in the Western world, and they do blame, again, our lifestyle and the chemicals. You've got to understand, this is a very well calculated scientific dictatorship to where they're trying to weed out oppositional behavior. I've gone over this before. They believe that ODD, opposition defiant disorder, is a real thing. It says that while most men can still father a child, scientists say the human race faces extinction if the trend continues. It follows a landmark study last year showing a 59% cut in Western sperm counts from 1973 to 2011. Pesticides, hormone-disrupting chemicals, stress, smoking, and obesity are seen as causes, along with too much alcohol, caffeine, and processed meat. The chemicals include some used to make some plastics flexible and furniture flame retardant, which can enter the food chain via plants or animals. Experts also blame increases in testicular cancer, the number of boys born with one or both testicles missing, and changing testosterone levels. Scientists in Valencia, Spain, and in New Jersey, USA, carried out one of the first large-scale studies of swimming sperm, known as the total motile sperm count. Men were split into 3 groups with low, medium, and high counts. The TMC of those in the highest U.S. group declined by 1.8 each year. The findings are causing alarm at American Society for Reproductive Medicine. They have a meeting in Denver, Colorado this week. We're talking about population control. So while we have our population over here, I've talked about this before, what's going on with our country, while we have our population over here at each other's throats for no real reason, the rest of the world is watching. How would you escape having to go to court or being caught on all your crimes? You would go to war. That's exactly where we're at right now. Some people are scapegoating a lot of their crimes by inciting all this violence. There's no way that some of these things can get exposed, like Hillary Clinton's emails and all the other stuff that Barack Obama's done, the crazy stuff that George Bush and George Herbert Walker Bush have been involved in. Their war crimes can't really get charged for that. They can't go to trial for that if we're at war. You see, so that's why they're trying to have all this domestic stuff happen. We're wasting money and resources there and time there, but at the same time, look at all these other wars that we're being involved in. This is the population control. So while, again, what is happening here domestically? We've gone on over Monsanto, Bayer, all these other things that are going on. Me and Charles Caston of Truth is Terrorism, we've talked about this. You know, what's going on with the veganism, some of this stuff, this malnutrition, it's being popularized. What is happening to the population? I don't think people really are taking the time to ask that. You know, I've talked again about how the drugs, the pharmaceuticals, how that stuff is just literally turning people brain dead. It blows my mind. But here, let me get into this article. This article right here that kind of shows you what happens whenever we start letting all these other outside influences, whenever we let the world dictate to us what is right. We'll be going over this in the next section as well. You know how with technology we're kind of going against our actual instincts. These things are designing us to not necessarily turn off our inhibition, but go against what we think of, what is actually natural. We're becoming extraordinarily unnatural. But right here, I put this up October 8th. It's from Your Newswire by Nima Harris. It says, Icelandic schools are teaching boys to be like girls and girls to be like boys. Now, we don't really talk about the whole gender thing, right? But I just want to talk about how this is just scrambling people. We talk about the hypersexualization of children, the pedogate, the child sex trafficking, and everything else that goes on with this. I feel like this is it. What did you guys think this drag queen story time stuff was going to lead to? Now, before I go into this article, let me pause. Let me slow down and take a quick break talking about this stuff. What does it mean? I've talked about this before. I understand kind of what's happening. And you really have to look at it. We're going through a paradigm shift. We're switching, we're changing. And we're trying to use all these laws that are having us, we're going through a controlled awakening. That's the easiest way to say it. Through this paradigm shift, you know, we're supposed to understand deeper aspects of ourselves. We're supposed to look at and respect, you know, the sacred feminine and the divine, or the divine female and the sacred masculine. We're supposed to understand the duality and more. But what's happening, because we have this outside influence, these totalitarian technocrats who are messing up all kinds of stuff, they're controlling it. They're introducing this trans idea, this thing where they mess with our chemicals, where they mess with our biology, where they turn boys into girls and girls into boys, and they say that it's okay. You know, you have to understand the deeper levels in the time frame that we're at. And while I can respect that, I don't necessarily have respect for it basically being commercialized or put onto the population as if it should be normalized. These are things that people should be led to themselves. You shouldn't be forcing this onto one another. But let me take a stab at this article. It says the expression "boys will be boys" is no longer the norm in Iceland. Some schools in Iceland are defying stereotypes in the name of equality by making boys play with dolls, paint their nails, and give massages, as the girls are encouraged to be noisy and jump from trees. A network of 20 nursery and elementary schools aim to counter stereotypical gender roles and behaviors from an early age by using what is known as the Hijali teaching method, which was founded by self-described radical feminist Margaret Pala Alfredor. There's no way I can pronounce that. I'll just say Margaret. But before I go on any further, a lot of this stuff too is in the Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030 documents. It is to make a extraordinarily pro-feminine society. This is why you see men kind of being suppressed. This is why you see families being suppressed. This is why you see all this crazy stuff going on. This isn't for women. This is for this crazy feminist radical thing. This is why, again, I talked about this at the start of the show. Part of the pacification of this, of society, is to do that, is to emasculate us. Now, the feminine gets us into our emotions, gets us into our feelings, gets us into our hearts. This is very understanding. You've got to get that. That testosterone, though, that's what's trying to save you. That's what's trying to actually defend, protect, activate. You see, again, you've got to understand the duality between these two types of energies. But if they push one on the primary, there's an imbalance. And that's what I mean by it being controlled. But let me continue on. Here it says, while the country is consistently ranked first in the world for gender equality, the Hijali method is considered progressive even in Iceland. RT reports, while still considered radical by Icelandic standards, the network has grown to cater to 8% of all nursery-age children in the country since the first school opened in 1989. The school's program sees boys and girls wear the same uniforms and play with gender-neutral toys. However, they are not separated from us today in order to participate in activities that actively counter that of what is expected of them by current gender normal norms. Gender norms. Wow. For example, girls who were considered more caring and helpful are instead taken on activities that encourage them to be daring, take initiative, and to be more individualistic, characteristics often associated with boys' play. Activities that include climbing trees and walking barefoot in the snow without screaming. Boys, on the other hand, are treated to far more mellow games in an effort to develop male empathy, activities including pretending to be babysitters with rag dolls, painting their nails, as well as styling each other's hair and giving full body massages. Quote, we want to give the girls to go out of their safety zone. We want to teach them to be noisy and teach them to scream and jump and take place. Use their voice, the founder of Hijali, Margaret Paula Osfodor, said. And with the boys, we want to teach them not only the boys' culture. Now, again, there's a lot of different things to look at there, a lot of different angles to point that out. But I want to play a clip for you guys because apparently New York Mayor Bill de Blasio signed into law the ability to basically give people their own gender X, a third gender. This is what I mean. This is the transhumanism. This is the biohacking. This is so crazy to me that I'm not necessarily sure a lot of people are sure what to say. You know, it started again with the sexualization of children, introducing drag queen story time, this radical feminism that we see perpetuating in modern society. But I have to ask the question, what happened to family marches? How come we don't see any of that? That's real equality. When everybody is pulling their own weight, when there is a obvious imbalance, there's going to create some kind of problem later on down the line. But here, I'm going to play for you guys this quick clip of them showing New York Mayor Bill de Blasio signing Gender X, the third gender bill, into law.
Birth certificates issued in New York City will now have a third gender category. Mayor de Blasio signed the historic legislation into law today, and it allows people to change their sex designation on their birth certificate to conform with the gender they identify with. The third category would mark a person's gender as X. A letter from a doctor or an affidavit by a licensed healthcare provider will not be required. Residents can now submit their own affidavit requesting a gender identity change on their birth certificate.
Now I don't even know what to say. Hey, this is the future. Our children may not even have genders. They might even become literally some kind of transhuman, some kind of transgender creature. and we'll have to figure out a politically correct way to respect that. The same way they push to have people in your bathroom, gender-neutral bathrooms, and all this other stuff. This is kind of wild to me. It really is. But whenever you take a step back and look at why are they pushing this type of stuff, they realize, to a degree, they messed up. They're exposing themselves with all this other nonsense. The atrazine, the lead, everything, the fluoride, everything else, the thorium, everything else they're putting into the water, man. This is the stuff that really is breaking down our molecules, breaking down our DNA, breaking down like our biology, and it's changing us. It really is. And so they're making the steps now to create this gender X, this third gender, this legalized lunacy that we see kind of going on, where people are deciding to be whatever they want, right? That Antifa and all these other crazy people are fighting for. That's what it's going to lead to. We may not even be human in the future. And that's the way they want it. They want us to be sheep. They want us to be goyim. They want us to be subhuman, so they have a reason to get rid of us. But we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about what's going on with America. What's going on with China. Facebook recently launched their new portal device, and all of this and more. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this. That's right. Things are pretty wild. They really are. Like, things really are kind of wild. And I'm not necessarily sure what to say other than thank you for tuning in to this segment. We're going to be talking about the Technetronic infiltration. What's going on? There was a report that came out just the other week how China has infiltrated the CIA, Apple, and Amazon. And I've talked about this before here in, not necessarily like the Chinese threat, but like what's going on. Well, yeah, the Chinese threat. What's going on with our countries? How there's a lot of different things happening, and how I'll put it to you this way, right? You know why all of the pedophiles are being rounded up here? Because the powers are moving to China. The powers are moving to different locations to where business works a little bit different. A lot of people say that they're doing American business, but they're just ordering in bulk from China and then relabeling it in America. It's crazy. We don't see how the chaos that Antifa is bringing us, how it is turning us into an authoritarian state. Some people are actually calling for the security and calling for the martial law. You see, we have to understand that what's happening is a radical political shift. And as I said before, I don't really think about what we do as political, right? But I think it's important and imperative that we really do look at kind of what's happening and what will happen, what this reshaping really will do. You see, let me get into this article. We put this up October 9th. It's from SHTF Plan from a contributing author. It says the U.S. is morphing into the USAA, or the USSA, the United States of Soviet America. It says we are experiencing an ever-increasing level of surveillance over the citizenry, government censorship and closed-door policies, control of and manipulation of the media, and a hard-line shift of all institutions to the left. The institutions I'm referring to are specifically the educational system, better termed as a system of indoctrination, the courts, the religious institutions. Every one of them are leaning towards, if not striving towards, full-blown socialism. Let us recall a key quote. The goal of socialism is communism. Just recently as Tuesday, October 2nd, 2018, we have this stunning announcement as quoted by the Washington Examiner by none other than the Secretary of Department of Homeland Security. Here's the excerpt. It says Homeland Security Secretary Christine Nielsen warned Tuesday that the public should steer clear of Russian-owned entities that pose legitimate news outlets. Quote, I encourage everybody, if you are reading something and it suddenly takes you to RT and Sputnik, be aware. I mean, those are state-sponsored news outlets. They're not independent. Nielsen said at the Cybersecurity Summit in Washington, D.C., yeah, can you imagine that? Those Russian news sources are state-sponsored and not independent. So ABC, CBS, and New York Times are independent. Freedom of the press, right? And how many White House press briefings would tolerate one person, one reporter from the independent news media? If it isn't AP, the Associated Press, sanctioned with a card, credentials, and lip balm, nobody is getting into those briefings. And how about all those, quote, presidential debates, such as those modified by Cooper, Wolf Blitzer, and the like? The ones with the questions and their answers figured out a month in advance, with phony people and actors pretending to ask the questions spontaneously. The show must go on, right? What about the media bias and slant? That's right. The bias that we see in the fake news media, right? What about the bias and slant away from the president right now? We are not talking about politics instituted by the president. We are discussing policies of censorship and watered-down propaganda that eclipse Pravda and Nesvizhia of the Soviet Union for its Hollywood polish and panay. We have become as the Soviet Union and worse. There is no freedom of speech, no freedom of press. We are in a soft time right now prior to the massive clamping down that will occur when the globalists have their clawed, fingered control over the White House and all of Congress again. The clamping will be nothing more than the final evisceration of the Constitution and complete restrictions, martial law, and even open enslavement being in place and out in the open. Now, once again, let me remind everybody that this is the Department of Homeland Security Secretary we're talking about. So, whoever writes about what she said or about the DHS will be scrutinized by that agency. Bradford Betts on Fox News wrote an article titled Homeland Security Database would track journalists, media influencers. Remember we reported on that? I wrote an article about the spokesperson for the DHS subsequently. Here's an excerpt from that piece. It says the Department of Homeland Security is seeking contractors for the creation of a database that would monitor news outlets around the world and collect information on journalists, bloggers, and, quote, media influencers. The plan comes amid concerns of so-called fake news and its effect on U.S. elections. The Chicago Sun-Times reported a DHS solicitation for bids on the project appears on the website fedbiz.ops. So I'm going to put a pause right there because I think you good folks get the gist of it. This is the world that we're going into. This is that authoritarian mindset that I'm really trying to fight against. Now, and I really do ask this question, even in relation to Antifa and all this chaos that we see going. Do they understand what they're ushering in? Do they understand what kind of bear they're kicking? They're trying to use the government to literally enact martial law. They're trying to use the government. They're literally, it's crazy. To me, it is crazy, the sophisticated mind control, the sophisticated social engineering that's going on to where they're literally trying to usher in their own demise. These agent provocateurs, these paid-off protesters, these people, even such as David Hogg, they don't understand how their revolution, so to speak, is one that's controlled. They're selling us out and getting in bed with the devil, as I said before, whenever we took that break with Antifa. How they are in bed, indeed, with the devil by doing these types of things. And they know, and they're so deep that they cannot get out. And this is what I mean. This is that chaos. Do they even know what this will do? Let's see if we can play that clip one more time for you guys of Hillary Clinton talking about the wave, how you can't be civil.
Nominations, that you cannot be civil with a political party that wants to destroy what you stand for, what you care about. That's why I believe if we are fortunate enough to win back the House and or the Senate, that's when civility can start again. But until then, the only thing that the Republicans seem to recognize and respect is strength. And you heard how the Republican members, led by Mitch McConnell, the president, really demeaned the confirmation process, insulted and attacked not only Dr. Ford, but women who were speaking out. You know, look, I remember Republican operatives shutting down the voting in Florida in 2000. I remember the swift voting of...
Let's take a quick pivot real quick before we go into our next article. Speaking of Hillary Clinton, why she's coming back out, why, I think everybody's really getting annoyed with her. She's got ties, she's got money, she's got all kinds of stuff that people don't understand. She's one of the big dogs, one of the big players. I didn't really report on it when it came out, but earlier this year, information came out about how all kinds of Chinese spies were executed that had information to Hillary Clinton's emails. I think it was like 21 spies were executed because they had access to Hillary Clinton's emails. And you got to think this is public information. This is stuff that's getting talked about. One person was actually killed in front of like a governmental building because of it's like trying to send, they're trying to send like a public message to Washington. You see, this is crazy to me, but she's saying we can't be civil. Right here, let me pull up some of these some of these articles for you guys, because it again talks about the infiltration that's going on, and I'll get into another article over here on our Instagram shortly. But this is from the New York Times. It says, killing CIA informants, China crippled U.S. spying operations. And this is put up May 2007 or May 20th, 2017. The next article I have for you guys right here: did China hacking of Clinton emails lead to the death of CIA spies? And you know, we talk about this all the time, how different spy agencies have been involved in operations out here. I remember just last year they had a spy in one of these national laboratories that got killed when they came back. It's crazy. Everybody's spying on everybody. And I'm only going to get into a gist of this, and then we'll talk about, you know, what all this spying means, and again how we're in that soft time. We're I don't want to say we're going to war, because that kind of screams alarm bells for a lot of different things. But we're in what some people would call a Cold War. While we're having a civil war here in our country that's being actually stoked by outside agitators and inside instigators, we have all kinds of stuff happening across seas too. It is crazy, and a lot of it starts with the technology. But let me get into this. This is by Tyler Durden. The Anti-Media reposted it. We put this up October 4th. It says, explosive report details Chinese infiltration of Apple, Amazon, and the CIA. It says, 1 week ago, President Trump stood up at a meeting of the United Nations Security Council and accused China of attempting to tamper with U.S. elections, mimicking some of the same allegations that had first been levied against Russia nearly 2 years prior. In his speech, Trump claimed that China was working to undermine Republicans, and even the president himself warning that, quote, it's not just Russia, it's China and Russia. While the media largely shrugged off this proclamation as a more presidential bombast, probably inspired by the burgeoning U.S.-China trade beef, the administration continued to insist that it was taking a harder line against China efforts to subvert American companies to aid the Communist Party's sprawling intelligence apparatus. As if to underline Trump's point, the FBI arrested a Taiwanese national in Chicago the day before Trump's speech, accusing the 27-year-old suspect of trying to help China fight or flip 8 defense contractors who could have provided crucial intelligence on sensitive defense-related technology. Before I go on, I've actually talked about that. I've literally not that specific incident. I've talked about how China is using things like LinkedIn, these job recruiting platforms, to recruit defectors. Again, we're talking about this Antifa, these people who are within our country trying to sell us out, who are saying, hey, these are traitors. Let's keep it real. These are traitors we're talking about. People who are selling out our country, selling out your safety, selling out my safety, selling out your child's safety, all for a few extra bucks. Good God, let me get back into this. It says, but in a game-changing report published Thursday morning, Bloomberg Businessweek exposed a sprawling multi-year investigation into China's infiltration of U.S. corporate and defense infrastructure. Most notably, it confirmed that in addition to efforts designed to sway U.S. elections, China's intelligence community orchestrated a pervasive infiltration of servers used to power everything from MRI machines to the drones used by the CIA and the Army. They accomplished this by using a tiny microchip no bigger than a grain of rice. Oh my God. Well, yeah. We're infiltrated. You know, some of the reports that were coming out as far as Hillary giving over her information to some of the Chinese spies. Apparently, she sent like a carbon copy, a CC, every single time she sent out like an email to those private servers, to those private emails, right? The Chinese were getting some. Continuing on with this article, it says BBG published the report just hours before Vice President Mike Pence was expected to, quote, string together a narrative of Chinese aggression during a speech at the Hudson Institute in Washington, according to excerpts leaked to the New York Times. His speech was expected to focus on examples of China's aggressive move against American warships, of predatory behavior against their neighbors, and of a sophisticated influence campaign to tilt the midterms and the 2020 elections against President Trump. Now, again, back to the politics. It's not one individual. This is the globalization. Hillary Clinton allowing email or allowing access to everything that's going on. This is globalization. We're seeing, I think, you're seeing nationalism being associated with capitalism, and you're seeing globalism be associated with communism and socialism, which is very true. you see. But what's happening right now is they're giving all the power, all the globalist influence to China. And it's true, you know. Let me play for you guys this quick clip where they're talking about just that, you know, the influence and the power that China has at its disposal. I don't think, like, Silicon Valley is one thing. I've talked about that in our most recent mini cast, what's going on there, how they're the new elite and everything else. But this next video I want to play for you guys is of Kai-Fu Lee, where he's talking about China's superpower, how they're becoming part of the New World Order and taking over everything. Let's take a listen.
China's the Saudi Arabia of data. China has not only 3 times more mobile internet users, but 10 times more food delivery usage, 50 times more mobile payment usage, 300 times shared bicycle usage. And all of this is data that's fed into the AI engine. The whole China AI industry blossomed in the last 2.5 years with more money, more data, and great entrepreneurs, and also huge internet companies with a lot more data all jumping into this. The AI industry is rapidly catching up with the United States. China has more speech data, China has a lot more facial data, so China has become better in facial recognition, speech recognition, machine translation, drones, and computer vision. So many people are predicting AI still will grow slowly, is comparable to the past revolutions like the Industrial Revolution, electricity, the combustion engine, and so on. But I think China introduces an accelerator. Whoever is executing quickly with a large amount of data will have a strong inherent advantage. And China is by far the largest possessor of data. The American approach will value more academic research and leadership. The Chinese way will value more clever usage of data to create value. And this dual engine will cause the age of artificial intelligence to arrive faster, because now there are 2 great economies and innovation engines pushing artificial intelligence forward.
That is a whole lot to digest right there. What I term a lot of this stuff happening that we see right now is surveillance capitalism, to where they're allowing all this stuff to take place because of the money that's going after it, what this means for society, what's going to come after. This is the socioeconomic reformation that I mean happening in so many different ways. This is where we see people putting their time, their money, and their energy, and their resources, and everything else. Now, the next clip that I want to play for you guys, which has also been making waves about, you know, again, the time frame that we're at. You already thought it was okay with Alexa. You're conditioned to your Siri and your phone. And now Facebook has announced their latest device, their Facebook portal.
Facebook announcing 2 voice-controlled video calling devices to compete with the smart home devices from Amazon, Google, and Apple. These devices are called the Portal and the Portal Plus. They'll focus on video calling with a smart camera that follows you as you move around the room, tapping into the 400 million people who use Facebook's Messenger voice and video chat every month. This is part of Facebook's push to connect its users to their friends and family. Now, the Portal has a 10-inch screen and will cost $200, while the Portal Plus has a 15.6-inch screen and is priced at $350. You can order them now and they'll ship early next month. Now, besides video calls, the devices can stream music from Spotify, Pandora, and Amazon, and video from Facebook Watch, but they are not partnered with the likes of YouTube, Apple Music, or Netflix, at least not at launch. The devices are equipped with Amazon's Alexa voice assistant software, so consumers can ask the device for the weather or to control smart home devices, among other things. And Amazon will be Facebook's biggest competitor. Amazon has the largest share of the smart speaker market, over 1/3 of sales in the first half of the year, according to Strategy Analytics, followed by Google with 22% market share. Now, Facebook's move into this crowded smart home device space comes amid scrutiny over its privacy practices. Facebook says these devices are built with privacy and security in mind, with a cover for the camera lens and a button to turn the camera and microphones on and off. Also saying that Facebook doesn't listen to, view, or keep the content of your calls. But remember when Amazon's Echo recorded a conversation and sent it to a random contact? Guys, this is definitely this issue of privacy is going to be something that people are paying attention to.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I've actually heard some people have commented on the page some crazy stuff. You guys always say the craziest stuff whenever I take the time to read it. But, somebody has said before that privacy is a relic of the past. Get used to being watched. And that's still something that I have to think about. This is 1984 on steroids. This is the Brave New World. This is Minority Report, where we're talking about things such as pre-crime, social crime. Look at China. They're already developing the social credit system. Now, if you thought that was kind of strange, Facebook coming up with their own kind of a home device, let me play for you guys this clip of Tucker Carlson where he talked about this type of stuff and where it's going to lead.
We've been telling you for months now about the growing power of the big tech companies whose brand of surveillance capitalism has come to shape our politics and culture in ways that many people don't perceive.
Hey,
so I want to give you a very specific example of that. It's both a look into the near future and a terrifying illustration of the control these companies seek over our daily lives. We recently reviewed several patents filed by Google. As we describe them, ask yourself if you're comfortable giving this much power to unelected technocrats you have never met. In the first patent, filed in September of 2016, Google envisions how it could send you personalized advertising based on what a camera observes in your home. In the illustration that Google submitted to the federal government, the Patent Office, a camera in your bedroom sees a Godfather novel on your nightstand next to your bed and uses that to steer you to watching the movie. If you think that's creepy, prepare yourself because it gets a lot creepier. In another patent application from September 2016, Google imagines how it could take control of your parenting, your relationship with your children. Google's smart home system could detect children near a liquor cabinet, for example, or in their parents' bedroom, infer that, quote, mischief is occurring and deliver a verbal warning. In another example, Google imagines a hypothetical child called Benjamin. Google's cameras would be watching Benjamin at all times, carefully. They could see if he's playing outside or using electronics. Presumably, they'd also try to use that information to sell him things at some point, because that's the whole point of Google. The same patent also discusses how the smart home could coach families on, quote, areas of improvement. For example, if a family doesn't spend enough time together, eating together, in Google's estimation, Google might scold them and suggest that they set a goal of eating more often together. That is Google's description, not ours, by the way. We contacted Google for comment on this, and the company, and we're assuming it was a person and not a robot, replied this way, quote, we file patent applications on a variety of ideas that our employees come up with. Some of those ideas later mature into real products or services, some don't. In other words, don't worry, we're not spying on you yet. We just have a patent for it.
Now think about that. Think about that. Google telling you how to feel. Hey, get little Benjamin away from that liquor cabinet. He's too young to be having the sauce. You get him away from that eggnog. Says Siri, says Alexa, says any one of these devices that you let into your home. Now, if any one of you guys get that, now you're a little bit of a fool. We already have the smartphone, and look at what that's done to society. Look at how much that's radically shifted everything. Google is creating that. They want to be able to influence you so much. I just talked about this in one of our previous minicasts. Google's selfish ledger. The idea that they have algorithms where they suggest you these types of things, and once you've given as much of you as you can, they begin to fill the spots with other information, with other data points, with other factors. This is the technocracy. This is the scientific dictatorship. It doesn't sound scary because it's not done. That's what's even more wild. They want to have it so immersive, so advanced that we don't even think about it. Bill Gates went and bought like a plot of land out there in Arizona so he could develop his own smart city. You see all kinds of different places saying, hey, we're going to build a smart city. We're going to build a smart city. We're going to build a smart city. I think it's one of the crown princes of Saudi Arabia, Prince Mohammed bin Salman. He's buying a piece of land that's like 33 times the size of New York, and his whole idea behind that is to turn that into an Agenda 21 ridden society to where everything is just run by robots. It's all automated, this, that, and the third. This is the autonomous society. This is the matrix. These are the smart cities. This is the future that they're trying to build. While it seems fantastic, as we reported on this just the other week, Amazon unleashing their 3,000 stores, right? while it seems fantastical, we have to realize what we're giving up. It's our freedom. It's our individuality. It's our ability to break away from the matrix. What are we sacrificing for this convenience? Now, I said I was going to talk about this because I didn't really address it, but Trump's presidential alert system is the epitome of government. Kerry Wedler said it the best. Nobody asked for it. It doesn't do any good. And now we just have this thing here. I thought she said it way better on her page, but basically what we're talking about is how this totalitarian technocratic system has access to every single one of our devices. Does that mean China has access to our devices as well? This is the world we have to think of now. So globalization is a different kind of thing. I talked about this towards the start of Trump's presidency. What's going to happen is we're going to have our own version of nationalization for globalization. We're going to have both of them. We're going to have the illusion of nationalism, but we're also going to be introduced to globalization. There are so many different things that come with that. So Trump's presidential alarm system, that's for FEMA. That's whenever they're allowed to tell you which of your local shelters to go to. Antifa's out here being crazy, you know, run to this shelter here. Oh, sorry, you can't leave. Remember when we reported, I think just last year, about some of the inhabitants of the FEMA camps, some of the reports, some of the information that came out from those places, how they were treating civilians. And this year we're having all kinds of storms, all kinds of geoengineered things take place. It's really, really crazy. It is really, really wild. But you know what? We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about some more issues that we have to deal with here. You know, as I said before, the idea of them in engineering environments. Elon Musk said that he's going to start fixing some of the Flint water that's going on there. Thank the Lord. And the United Nations actually released a new report that is causing all kinds of waves. We'll be talking about this and more on the other side. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this. Salutations, my friends. I'm here to talk to you about, that's right, CBD oil. CBD oil can reduce the risk of relapse among alcohol and cocaine addicts, and you know they're trying to flood us with both. According to a 2013 study published in the British Journal of Clinical Pharmacology, CBD was proven to have these benefits: relieving pain and inflammation, having antipsychotic effects, reducing anxiety, helping to fight cancer, relieving nausea, treating seizures, lowering incidences of diabetes, and also promoting cardiovascular health. Realized that in 2014, Purdue Pharma received FDA approval for an opioid drug that claimed to help curb the opioid addiction. This will actually help you curb your usage of opioids as well as your reliance upon them. And remember, guys and gals, stay vigilant. Expose lies and share truth. This is Noise Era, Freedom Faction, out. I told you. We're not going anywhere. Even if they try to kick me off, I feel like there's some people, I really do, I really feel like there's people at the top who are just like, you know what, we got to let this guy do this thing. We have to. We have to let him. He's helping somebody. Some people are benefiting from this crazy maniac's ramblings. So thank you. And then, you know, at the same time, build it and they will come. So it really does become either way. However you want to look at it. But greetings and salutations, my friends. Thank you for tuning in to this segment of Factions of Freedom. Now, we went to break talking about how that presidential alert system was useless. Kind of how government's becoming useless. Sorry. Which brings me to, hey, people are voting. People are voting, which is good. Again, as I said before, I don't think your political activism should stop there. I think, if anything, your vote and your political activism has more of an effect locally than it does, like, federally. What's going on in big government, man? I'm not even for big government. Stay out of my pocket, stay out of my check, stay out of my life. Really, I'm not down. People have the ability to vote, but getting back into it, I just really feel like, you know, it's picking who your new slave master is. But, you know, this is for another conversation, another day. To bridge this section with the last one, Trump's presidential alert system showed how, well, that's fancy, that's cool, it shows that it's functional. What does that actually do for society? Why are we having to rely upon people like Elon Musk to fix Flint's water crisis? Now, is it because of the cities, the people, the politicians that are running these types of things, who are running it into the ground? We don't know. But I've actually seen a lot of, I guess, corporations taking the time to try to do more public good. And what I mean by this is you have things like Domino's fixing potholes. You have things like Target building parks and centers. It's really crazy to think about, but is this the corporatocracy? You know, even speaking of last year, you know, with Hurricanes Maria and what went on in Puerto Rico, right after that, Elon Musk was really down to go put in his power walls. Is this creating customers? Is this creating the smart city? I think, you know, overall, it's good that these things are getting fixed, but you've got to wonder what happens whenever these people are out of power, because politicians are not the same as businesses. So let me get into this article right here from the Free Thought Project. We put this up October 8th. It's by Matt Argerist. It says, Elon Musk is now making good on his promise to fix Flint's water crisis. It says Elon is making good on his promise to fix Flint's water, and he is starting by installing water filters in every single school. When a Twitter user openly challenged Elon Musk last July and questioned whether he was capable of providing clean water to the residents in Flint, Michigan, he responded and pledged his commitment to the cause, which sparked a campaign to help the citizens who have been neglected by local and state governments. Now, he is making good on that promise. Musk has been all over the media lately since he called out the Security and Exchange Commission last week, referring to how they can manipulate the markets with their government influence. Last Thursday, Musk referred to the SEC as the Short Seller Enrichment Commission after he was fined millions. However, another tweet involving Musk went out on the same day, but it didn't fit the current narrative in the mainstream media to smear billions, to smear the billionaire, so it got almost no coverage. The tweet was from the Flint, Michigan school system thanking him for holding true to his promise to help fix their water. This was later confirmed in a follow-up article by MLive.com, who noted that Musk will pay the filtration systems at all Flint schools. The clean water crisis in Flint began in 2014 when the city's local drinking water was changed to a cheaper source, which was not sufficiently treated, and more than 100,000 residents were exposed to alarmingly high levels of lead in their drinking water. After 4 years and an abundance of media coverage, there are still residents who are subjected to contaminated drinking water, and it has become obvious that the local government has no plans to provide the help its citizens need. The Twitter user who reached out to Musk wrote, quote, I heard a bunch of people saying there was no way you could help get clean water to Flint, Michigan, said you wouldn't be capable, I don't know. While Musk isn't fixing all of Flint's water yet, on top of fixing all the schools, he has previously announced plans to help the residents as well. Now, I think that's fantastic. That's awesome. You know, the same thing happened, and I put up an article literally right next to it. The same thing happened in Africa. Akon went up in there, and he's trying to bring solar power to thousands of people in Sierra Leone. This is beautiful. You know, I remember whenever the whole Flint thing really started to break news, a lot of people tried to get water to Flint. They set up like a whole operation to get water to Flint. But it's only so much that people can do. Could this be the overpopulation? Could this be the world that we're moving into? What's even more crazy is while we have all this stuff going on with Elon Musk, you know, him trying to fix the water, trying to make change, you've got to me, I think a lot of what this is too is it's the socioeconomic reformation, Agenda 21, renewable society. How do we get in more alignment with the world? Some things are unsustainable. How do we fix it? But what's even more strange is apparently this has been a very busy time frame for Elon. He recently launched his Falcon 9 rocket in California. It looked kind of like a UFO. I'll be honest, looks like dragon's breath. Boosh. All kinds of other stuff. So what is this? What does that mean? Why am I pivoting from fixing the water, getting society renewable, all these other things, to what's going on in space, what's going on with this? Why are these types of things developing? Because on Earth, we're only going to have a certain access. We're going to have access to only so much, right? We're not going to have all these epic technologies that these people try to say. Unfortunately, I feel like they'll give us some kinds of things that will keep society sustained, but it will not liberate us. It will not advance us, so to speak. And what I mean by that is that's the whole point behind the Space Force. That's the whole point behind the breakaway civilization, is all this advanced technology is going to them. That is why they are, as David Attenborough said, going to live longer. And so before I get into other things that are going on here on the planet that kind of pertain to this, the world that we see them trying to create, engineering this environment, I didn't get time to post this around, but on October 9th, there's an article that said entrepreneur Sir Richard Branson said that a private company will reach space in weeks, not months. Now, when we break this down, because this is from STHF Plan, when we break this down and look at it, what we're seeing again is this breakaway civilization. Are these people getting off of the planet and saying, you know what, we don't really necessarily care what's going to happen here. We're just going to get off, release the bioweapon, wait for it to do its thing, come back down with our advanced technology, and then repopulate. But let me get into here. It clearly doesn't say all that in this article, but this is just my approximation. It says private company will reach space in weeks, not months. It says entrepreneur Sir Richard Branson has said that private company Virgin Galactic is only a few weeks away from its first trip into space. Sir Richard Branson is in a race with Elon Musk of Tesla and Amazon's Jeff Bezos to send the first fee-paying passenger into space. Branson, who is a 67-year-old multimillionaire, was initially expected to take part in a space flight before April of this year. Unanticipated delays and a fatal crash in 2014 prevented Sir Richard's original ambitions. Earlier this year, Virgin Galactic, which established in 2004 by Branson, completed a supersonic test of its spaceship-to-passenger rocket ship, its first since the crash. Quote, "We should be in space within weeks, not months, and then we will be in space with myself in months and not years," the firm's founder and chief executive told the news website CNBC. In an interview with BBC Radio's 4 Use You and Yours program, Sir Richard said he was receiving astronaut centrifuge and fitness training. He also insisted there was a huge demand for commercial space flights. Quote, "If I have a room full of 10 people, 8 out of 10 people would love to go to space if they could afford it," Sir Richard told CNBC. "It is up to us to produce as many spaceships as we can to cater to that demand." His plan, or Branson's mission, is planned for 2023. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos has said his space travel firm Blue Origin will launch a manned mission into space by 2019. According to BBC, Bezos didn't clarify if he meant crew or fare-paying passengers. Earlier this month, Blue Origin also announced that it is launching a non-profit group with Airbus, the European Space Agency, Agencia Espacial Mexicana, and French construction company Vinci Construction to explore ways to colonize the moon. Branson has also had a small piece of advice he wanted to share with SpaceX CEO Elon Musk. When asked by CNBC Nancy Hungerford what advice he would give to Musk, Branson hesitated before saying that Musk should learn to delegate. Quote, "I think he maybe needs to learn the art of delegation," Branson said. Speaking in Singapore, he's got to find time for himself. He's got to find time for his health and his family. He's a wonderfully creative person, but he shouldn't be getting very little sleep. He should find a fantastic team of people around him. I wish I could do that. I need to do that. Lord knows I need to do that. But that is somewhat already happening, and that is another discussion for another time. But speaking of space, speaking of what's going on, the race for space, what's happening in society, as I said before, with the breakaway civilization, what we see taking place, these people, Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson, and Elon Musk, all these people are literally trying to get off into space. This is the world we're going into. This is why I have a very complicated relationship with the flat earth theory right now. I feel like it's being injected simply to turn people off to the idea of space. But this is for another discussion, another time. To carry on with what's going on with news, somebody caught on YouTube, spotted on NASA's live feed, a craft with doorway and being inside. Now the whole video, I would definitely ask you guys to go check it out yourself. It's on a YouTube channel called Mr. MBB3. We don't normally do these types of things, but an odd structure was spotted on NASA's live International Space Station feed. A video shows what appears to be a doorway with what could be some kind of alien being inside. Now, I won't necessarily say it's some kind of alien being, but I will say that these types of things happen all the time. There's spaceships in the ISS feed, and they terminate it all the time. When you listen to the episode between me and Billy Carson, we talk about how there has been an existing Space Force, Space Command. The announcement of the Space Force is the announcement of so many things. This stuff is already operational. If you follow the trail of what's happened in Roswell and what's been going on in America off of the black budget projects, you'll see that from like 1947 into where we are right now, these guys have advanced technology out the wazoo. But let me play for you guys this quick clip.
At the Earth back in September of 2017. And this is what she saw. This is what caught her eye from this camera. Don't know what this is. Never seen anything like it myself. If it's on the ground, which I'm assuming it is, it's extremely large. Let me pause it for a second. I do zoom in closer like I do with a lot of these videos, change the filters, try to look at different color aspects and lighting perspectives, and it does look like, to me, it's got 90-degree angles. It does look like it's some sort of a intelligently designed object, whether it's some sort of a craft, whether it's something on the ground. I have no idea, guys. It looks like it's in a very remote part of the Earth.
Yeah, and that's kind of how a lot of these things work. I'm not one of the people who sit there and hover over NASA's feed to see what's going on Earth, or look at even what's going on with the ISS feed. But there are people that do these types of things. We've even seen that there was a pyramid in Antarctica before Google decided to scrub it. To people who are, looking at these types of things, looking at Google Earth, these types of anomalies are all over the place. Now, why I wanted to point this out in this section, the idea of engineering environments, is really looking at how the breakaway civilization, the society that we see already unfolding in front of us, right? They are fully operational. The breakaway civilization is operational. They are able to, they have the ships. They're coming and going from Earth. They are doing these types of things. There is no, I'm not really necessarily sure how else to say it. I'm one to say that they have bases or things on the moon, but I am one to say that they are operating in near orbit. I will say that they have cloaking technologies. They have all this advanced technology, no doubt, And that's, again, why Donald Trump announcing these types of things is their way of declaring, hey, look, we are fully operational. You know, I think just last year with Hurricanes Maria, Hurricane Harvey, and Katia, right? They released that movie Geostorm, where they were showing you that indeed they had space-based weaponry that could excite the particles in the air and cause all kinds of tsunamis. You know, I could go on and on and on and on about it. But I think it's imperative that we talk about, you know, what else is going on. So because you have this breakaway civilization of people who have this much power, right, they don't necessarily see us. They see the earth and they see everything else around them as the real resource. This is why resources are becoming important for us to think about. What I'm beginning to talk about and setting the stage for is things like global warming, climate change, right? Apparently the United Nations released a report that is basically telling the world, hey, look, we really got to start figuring out what to do with this climate change. I played a clip for you guys just last episode. I'm not sure if we have time for it, but I played a clip for you guys where Governor Jerry Brown was saying, look, all this stuff is going on with climate change, and nobody's doing anything. You know, let me see. Yeah, let me see if I can go ahead and get this clip up for you guys, because I think it's important to lead in with what we'll be discussing next. And I won't play the full thing. We'll just play a little bit of it. But this is Governor Jerry Brown speaking about climate change.
On YouTube, if you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below.
No.
As we've been reporting, rescue operations are still underway in the Carolinas. Incredible flooding there. Close to 1,000 water rescues have been made in North Carolina alone. The catastrophic flooding making travel impossible in some areas, and nearly 15,000 people are already staying in 150 shelters across the state. California's Governor Jerry Brown announcing late Friday, in the face of global warming, of climate change, and of what he calls the lack of a federal response, that the state of California is going to send its own satellite into orbit to track the progress of climate change, which of course is causing hurricanes to be stronger and more severe. I talked to Jerry Brown at his Global Climate Action Summit late Friday, a gathering of state, local, and world leaders.
We're in the midst of hurricanes and the aftermath of hurricanes, and you still have the President of the United States denying the science of climate change. How do you counteract that?
Well, first I want to say it's really extraordinary that the president can deny science like that. But he's done so many other what's the word? I don't even have an adjective. So it's bad, and how we counteract it is with this climate summit, with normal people respecting the truth and communicating that with other normal people, and combating the President of the United States in what are lies, distortions, and quite frankly bizarre behavior. So we have to keep at it, and I'm glad you gave me a chance to answer your question, because we can't say it enough. The President is just wrong.
The hurricanes are more severe. The wildfires are more severe. The storm surge is worse because sea levels are rising. Talk to me about what we are physically experiencing here in the United States and around the world that proves that everyone who predicted that this would happen.
Well, I would say we're just experiencing the very early beginnings of climate change. The forest fires in California, which are worse than any other time in recorded history, it's really just, unfortunately, it's the beginning. But as the carbon builds up, and it builds up very rapidly, we'll have more drought, more fires, more storms, more intense storms, more trouble. And the worst part is more migration. We're going to have people moving from their land that will no longer produce enough food. So the world leaders have got to wake up.
Now, the exit from the Paris Climate Agreement isn't official and binding till 2020, but what is the impact already internationally of the United States having said we're out of it?
So Trump is an enabler. We often hear that term, enabler. He's an enabler of climate negligence and climate avoidance. So that's what's bad about it, because we have to make sure that all these other countries, whether it's Russia or Poland or South America, Brazil, whatever the heck it is, Everybody's got to step up, and the President of the United States should be the cheerleader, the exemplar.
Notice how he ain't say China.
He's the saboteur, and that's tragic.
Here at the climate conference, you faced protesters. The Democratic Party has divisions. How do you handle that? But some people say you're not even, despite your leadership on this issue, that you're not doing enough.
So I'm gonna go ahead and he's right. Nobody's really doing enough because we're not really talking about, again, man-made climate change, how all these types of things are going on and how it really does affect us. But that was literally just last week. Or just the other week, you know, and it's important because you've got to look at how they say these veiled words. They communicate in lingo, all kinds of strange things. But while that's playing, I want to go over this article for you guys from Inverse. It's by Sarah Sloat. It says, catastrophic effect of climate change on mental health found in a new study. A landmark, we put this up October 18th or October 8th. It says a landmark United Nations report revealed that catastrophic events induced by climate change could become regular occurrences as soon as 2020. In the report published Monday by the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, it predicts disastrous effects around the world if greenhouse gas emissions continue to increase at their current rate. Previously, scientists believed these severe consequences would happen if the planet warmed by 2 degrees Celsius. Now that threshold is only by 1.5. Another related study published Monday highlights the extreme toll climate change has already taken on the human psyche 22 years before the 2040 warning. Short-term exposure to extreme weather, multi-year warming, and tropical cyclone exposure are all associated with worsened mental health. Scientists affirm in the journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, quote, our paper, when coupled with the evidence that climate change may impact everyday human moods to severe outcomes like suicide, provides further evidence that exposure to heat on average worsens mental health outcomes. Study co-author and MIT Media Lab research scientist Nick Obradovich, PhD, tells Inverse Obradovich and his colleagues reached this conclusion by analyzing the mental health data of nearly 2 million Americans, as well as daily meteorological and climate data taken between 2012 and 2002, or 2002 and 2012. Quote, if we push global temperature rise into the 2 degrees Celsius range, the impacts on human well-being, including mental health, may be catastrophic. Now, I know that kind of sounds ridiculous to talk about, the concept of mental health, that your health is affected by literally the weather. But, you know, on rainy days, I know I want to snuggle up and I want to get cute. I know whenever it's hot out, I definitely don't want to go do as much work in the yard. I don't want to go for a hike either. I don't want to do any of that. So I get what they're saying. What they're really trying to do at the same time is trigger people and get them aware of how they're geoengineering the earth, how things that we see taking place are kind of, it's to be expected. But you've really got to think about what that means. They say that they want $240 per gallon tax, that's needed to fight the UN, that's needed to fight global warming. Right here, let me get this article up for you guys. We put this up October 9th. It's from STHF Plan. It says United Nations, a $240 gallon tax is needed to fight climate change. I'll read this, and then we'll go over to a final article kind of pointing out the fact that we're living in a hypocritical age. The United Nations has declared that a $240 per gallon gasoline tax is, quote, needed to fight climate change. To limit global warming, the UN's report says that $27,000 per ton of gasoline will be stolen from the public by the year 2100. For Americans, that's the same as $240 per gallon tax on gasoline in the year 2100. Should such a recommendation be adopted in 2030, which is only 12 years away, the report says that the carbon tax would be needed as high as $5,500 and the equivalent to a $49 per gallon tax, reported the Daily Caller. The constant fear-mongering and the theft of the public in the name of climate change has not dwindled much in the past 10 years, and if anything, it has gotten worse. No amount of money will ever be enough to satisfy the ruling class elites that expect us to just accept that they will continue to steal from us in the name of any agenda they try to scare us about. This is no longer about climate change, but about the desire to steal from those on the very bottom of the economic ladder by those who believe themselves to be superior superior with authority over everyone. Now, there's a lot to go into, but for the sake of time, I don't want to, but I will pivot to this. You know, how, again, in that same report, because this report that went out, I hope you guys go download it. If anything, maybe we'll add it to the vault. But in this same report, they're pushing geoengineering as a last-ditch effort to save humanity. So they're saying, hey, look, we realize that the man-made climate change is real. We realize these things are going on. Our response to it is, why not start geoengineering things? Why not start modifying the weather? We actually saw a lot of this stuff take place with hurricanes Harvey and Maria. I remember reporting on it. But right here, this video from Chemtrails Worldwide talks about how the individual, I think it's someplace in the UK, how he's like, what is going on? Look at these crisscrosses in the sky. So this is a worldwide phenomenon.
Yes. The time is 10 to 6 on the 27th of September, Hertfordshire, England. Just stepped out of the house after the kids' dinner. Just going to sit out here in the garden and listen to my son read his school book. And what is going on here?
Yeah, not me. Not me and my crazy ramblings. This is somebody else literally just saying he stepped outside to hear his son read, and he's just seeing all these chemtrails in the sky, crosses in the sky. We've all seen pyramids in the sky. This is not real. This is not normal, right? But they're saying this stuff is going to affect your mental health. Could it be the aluminum, the barium, and the strontium that's contained inside of it that they're just spraying down? Yeah, that might affect your health. Could it be the fact that sometimes they'll spray this stuff and it'll literally blot out the sky? Let me get into this article. It's from Activist Post. We put this up October 10th. It says, in their new report, the United Nations is sounding alarm bells about the need for the controversial climate engineering technology. On October 8th, the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released a report which makes several calls for further investigation into climate engineering technology known as geoengineering. The IPCC report, titled Global Warming of 1.5 C, an IPCC special report on the impacts of global warming of 1.5 C above pre-industrial levels and related global greenhouse gas emission pathways. Wow, that's a crazy title. It warns that without investment into geoengineering technology, the Earth's temperatures will continue to increase. Now, before I go on into this article, what we're talking about is and they talk about this too in this article, John Brennan, one of the former directors of the CIA, how he calls it stratospheric aerosol injections. I've talked about this before. What I believe we're seeing right now, as Governor Jerry Brown said, we're seeing that kind of whiplash effect from the climate change and the global warming that's already happened. The geoengineering that's taken place, we're starting to see the backlash of it. If they've had, because I literally have patents that go back to the 1800s on how these people have been able to modify the weather. You got to think, if they've been doing this for almost, at least 50 years to almost 100 years, these people have the ability to do this. After a while, this would begin to mess with the actual rhythm of the Earth. Could you be talking about the anthropogenic time that we're in, or the Anthropocene, you see? But this is, again, what we see happening. And this is also part of Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030, trying to get into alignment with Earth. What is sustainable development? If because we have been living like this for so long and in so many different ages, so to speak, or decades, eventually there's got to be a shift. And what I mean by that is that paradigm shift that I talked about at the start of the show. It also has to happen ecologically. It also has to happen environmentally. That's why we have so many earthquakes happening. That's why we have so many tornadoes and things like this happening. Some of them are man-made. Some of them are actually natural. But because we have been living here, domesticated in these places for so long, the Earth is shifting around us. And in order for us to fight that, they are introducing things like climate engineering, like global warming, like geoengineering. It's crazy. But let me finish up this article. It says, geoengineering is the deliberate and large-scale manipulation of the weather and climate using a variety of technologies. One popular form of geoengineering being explored by IPCC scientists is known as solar radiation management, SRM, a process which involves planes spraying aerosols in the skies designed to reflect sunlight in an effort to combat anthropogenic global warming. Despite the renewed call for SRM, the IPCC admits that geoengineering is currently unpopular due to potential health and climate effects. Chapter 4 of the IPCC report states, even in uncertain cases, that the most adverse side effects of SRM can be avoided. Public resistance, ethical concerns, and potential impacts on sustainable development could render SRM economically, socially, and institutionally undesirable. However, following the IPCC's new report, most of the media has now begun to report favorably on the controversial proposal. Science Daily released a piece titled, quote, Crisis Management, 7 Ways to Engineer the Climate, while Business Insider opted for a more direct push for geoengineering with their piece. Quote, there's almost no chance humanity will act quickly enough to prevent catastrophic climate change. So here are the geoengineering techniques that might cool the planet. Business Insider at least acknowledges the potential dangers. This is important because we have to see how not only will you be affected by these types of things, your children will be affected. This is, it's kind of crazy, really, to think about it. Really to think about the world that we're moving into. They're admitting climate change, they're admitting global warming, they're admitting these things are happening. They're saying, we don't know what to do. We don't know what's going on. We're causing all these problems. One of the things I think is crazy too, speaking of all this hurricane and weather modification that's going on with Hurricanes Harvey and Maria, what went on in Texas, I remember afterwards they had to get some AC 130s, attach them with all kinds of equipment, spray chemtrails around there because they had mosquitoes that were brought in from different areas. And another response they had too was to genetically modify some of the mosquitoes that were local to the area. They genetically modify them to wipe out the ones that were brought over. And this is, again, some of the stuff that we see having to talk about take place with climate change, with global warming, with geoengineering, and all this other stuff. You see, so I want to close it out with something that's kind of wild to think about. Again, looking at these technocrats, looking at these scientists, and looking at the times that we are in. Global warming, geoengineering, technocrats running wild, scientists becoming literally Dr. Frankenstein. Concerned scientists have sounded the alarm that the U.S. military, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, is planning to spread viruses using insects that could create a whole new class of biological weapons. So not only do we have to worry about drone swarms, right? Like swarms of drones that are just like weaponized and lethal. We now have to worry about literally insects as biological weapons. We put this up October 4th. It's from Signs of the Times. It says insects could be turned into a new class of biological weapon using new U.S. military plans, experts have warned. Bugs could be used to disperse genetically modified viruses to crops under the Insects Allies program, according to a team that includes specialist scientists and lawyers. Such action will have profound consequences and could pose a major threat to global biosecurity, they said. However, the Defense Advanced Project Research Agency, DARPA, which is responsible for developing military technologies in the U.S., says it's merely trying to alter crops growing in fields by using viruses to transmit genetic changes to the plants. In theory, this rapid engineering would allow farmers to adapt to changing conditions, for example, by inserting drought-resistant genes in their crops instead of planting pre-engineered seeds. But this seemingly inoffensive goal has been slammed by the scientists, who say the plan is simply dangerous and that the insects loaded with synthetic viruses could be difficult to control. They also say that despite being in operation since 2016 and distributing $27 million in funds to scientists, DARPA has failed to properly justify the existence of such a program. Quote, given that DARPA is a military agency, we find it surprising that the obvious and concerning dual-use aspects of this research has received so little attention. Felix Becker, a lawyer at the University of Freiburg, told The Independent. Dr. Guy Reeves, an expert in genetically modified institutes at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Biology, said that there has hardly been any debate about the technology and the program remains largely unknown, quote, even in expert circles. He added that despite the stated aims of the program, it would be far more straightforward using the technology as a biological weapon than for routine agricultural use suggested by DARPA, and that's what they mean by dual use. They tell you, yeah, for sure, we're definitely going to use these genetically modified mosquitoes to change, let's say that, the genetic structure of the crops. We don't really understand how these technocrats are running wild. They have chips inside of your phone, no bigger than a grain of rice, that transmits half of your information to Amazon, half of your information to China, the other half to Apple. This is the world gone mad. This is what I mean by the engineering of environments. This could clearly be used for a biological weapon. Good Lord. And again, what have we talked about with these planes? People being sick. With Bayer, Monsanto, the weaponization of our environment. This is very, very strange days that we're moving into, and we have to be cautious of the chemical soup that they're trying to deploy onto us. Now, I wanted to talk about, in the last few seconds that we had, how the CDC admits that their flu shot was 36% effective, but you guys already knew this. You already know this. You know that everything they're trying to push onto us is somewhat a bit of a poison. This is the point of why we have to come together to actually figure out the solution. We have to be aware of the problems that they're pushing down our throat so that we can come through and offer the proper solution. However, that's all I really have for you guys. This is Radicalized Disobedience, Technetronic, Infiltration, and Engineering Environments. However, that's all I really have for you guys. I know I kind of went all over the place and talked about a lot of different topics, but the point is to give you guys a gist or just thought of what's going on, so we really have a comprehensive idea of how we're being affected in so many different ways. This isn't only a political issue, this is now becoming spiritual, mental, emotional, and so much more. But if you guys like what you've seen, you want to contribute to the operation, and you want to see us expand, think about becoming a Patreon exclusive member. Check out some of the links in the description bar below. Other than that, remember guys, stay vigilant, expose lies and share truth. This is Noizera, Freedom Faction, out.